Hello everyone, welcome to Yoobee College's Creative Sessions. I'm Tomie and I teach the online diploma in web and graphic design. So for today's session, I would like to go over how you can create this kind of render look using Adobe Photoshop. The tools we'll be looking at will be the Photoshop Paint tool, Mixer Brush tool, selection tools, also looking at the layers panel and creating the layer mask as well. So this is the 4 stages that we'll be going through as well. So we have the base color layer, the solid shading layer, the blended layer, and then the filtered layer or the blur layer. So without further ado, let's get started. So now that we've opened up Photoshop, what we want to do is create a new file. So you can simply hit new file to create a new file, or otherwise you can go file and new as well. And next, what you want to do is go into the print option, and I'm just going to simply click on the A4 option. Make sure that the resolution is 300 pixels per inch. And the color mode, we are going to work in RGB because RGB is the screen color. But if you are going to print it, I do recommend kind of exporting it out as a CMYK color because CMYK is a print color. But for now, we're just going to work in RGB color and just simply create it. So once we've created the document here, we are going to get the file ready to create our sphere. So first thing we need to do is look at our layers panel. So layers panel and the brushes will be like the key main tools we'll be using, but of course we'll also be using selection tools as well. So what I'm going to do is simply we're going to create a new solid color. So solid color layer is slightly different to using a paint bucket tool, for example, or that kind of thing. The good thing about the solid color is that even if you push OK, but you realize actually I want to change the color to some other color, you can simply do so by just simply double clicking and changing the hue to suit your color that you want to potentially change to. So let's say, for example, I want to make a sphere that is maybe more of a orange color, maybe like an orangey yellow mustard color, maybe some color like this. You can easily do so, which is really great. But if you wanted the blue, if you wanted to go back, you can also double tap and then you can also change the colors again. But I'm just gonna keep it this blue color. Next, what we want to do is we want to create a mask so it automatically crops the circular shape. So to do that, we are just going to use the tool on the left hand side corner, which is called the elliptical marquee tool. If you can't see this, and if you see some other tool, just simply right click and find the option that you're looking for. The original selection may be a rectangular marquee tool, but if you right click on that, you should be able to find the option for the elliptical marquee tool, and that's what we're after. So once we've done that, we are going to simply draw the circle or circular shape. Make sure you hold down the shift key just to make it the circle shape instead of like an oval and things like that. So once you've done that, we are going to go on the right hand side, and at the bottom you'll see this little folder icon. This folder icon is to create a new layer group. So simply click on that, and we're also going to apply a layer mask. So layer mask is the beauty of layer mask is essentially that if you draw, let's say for example, in this circular area, automatically outside information will be kind of hidden away, which is really useful for painting, especially since if you're not going to be always selecting, this is a good way to also save your selection and things like that. So once you create that, we are going to click on this little icon here. It looks like a little kind of like a Japanese flag. Click on that here, and that would have created the layer mask. The reason why nothing is happening right now is because we have nothing inside of that folder. So what we're going to do here is we are going to simply drag and drop that kind of this blue color, this turquoise color that we've selected, into the group 1 folder. So once we've done that, as you can see, automatically the solid color that was covering the whole page before is now automatically masked into that shape, which is really cool and really handy, especially when you're kind of shading and things like that. So once we've done that, if you feel like I want to move the position of this circle, maybe it's a little bit too high or a little bit too low, things like that, or maybe it's a little bit to the left or to the right, you can just do so by using the move tool. If you realize you use the move tool, you try to move it, you realize that actually nothing's happening. Like technically something is happening. The problem is that you're moving the solid color fill layer. And this is not what we want to do. So we want to move the whole folder, right? Even if you select this and you try to move it, it's not going to work. What you want to do is select the top one, so the whole group, and hit Control T. So Control, or if you're using a Mac, is Command T. Control or Command T, what it does is a shortcut key for transform. So now, once you hit Command T, you should be able to move to a position that you like. I'm just going to simply seem to align that there. When you're happy with that, simply hit Enter. Cool, so now we've positioned it the way we like. We're now happy to start adding shading. To add different kind of shadings, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the color fill layer, which is this one here, and click on a new layer. So it will automatically add a layer above, which is really good. So that's the reason why I clicked on this layer. So layer number 1 is going to be like solid. So let me just spell that, solid shading. So there's no blending involved. So I want to take it into different little chunks. So the first stage is the solid color, which is the base color. So feel free to name this base color. And then the solid shading, which is not blended, but just shaded colors. And then the next stage, the third stage is the blended colors. And then the fourth stage is if you wanted to blur it out, just to make the blended colors more smoother. So these are 4 stages to the step. So the solid shading, make sure you click on the solid shading layer. So we're on this layer, and we're going to now start using the brush tool. This one here, the first option here. And later on, in the next stage, we will use the mixer brush tool, but for now, just focus on the brush tool. We'll also be using eyedropper tool to sample the color on the screen. At the moment, I have it automatically selected here, but if you don't, you can just hit I. I is the shortcut key for the eyedropper tool, and sample that color, and hit B to go back to brush. To adjust the brush size, you can click on the square bracket keys. The right square bracket key would make the brush larger, and the left one would make it smaller. What I'm going to do is have it kind of relatively large, but not necessarily taking up the whole circle. Since I've sampled the color, what I'm going to do is double click on that here. And we are going to change it to a dark shade version of that particular color. And simply click on OK. Make sure with your brush, so you can go in the top left-hand corner, use the hard round pressure size. So if you have a tablet, use that one there. Otherwise, if you have just a mouse, you can just use a hard round. But click on that one there. And we are going to draw on the screen. And as you can see, since we're drawing in the folder, so the layer, this solid shading layer is in the folder, it's automatically cropping out, which is the beauty of the layer mask. So yes, it doesn't have to be perfect at this stage, but we are going to blend it out together later. So now once we've done that, we are going to find a slightly lighter shade, but still on the dark side, and add a next line like so. And I might do so here as well. But in this case, I'm going to make the brush a little bit smaller. Like that. And choose a lighter shade again. Make the brush bigger. And eyedrop this color here. And hit B again to go back to the brush. Double click on the left hand side and choose a lighter shade than the base color. And one more step of light color. Something like that. So this is the base color of the so it's the solid shading layer. Next layer is going to be the blended layer. So we're going to create a new layer on top, and we're going to call this blended layer or blended shading. So now this is the fun part where you actually blend together colors to make this really nice effect. So on the left hand side, this is where we're going to change to the mixer brush tool. So when you're using the mixer brush tool, sampling color is also really good to do as well. I also recommend turning off the background. The reason why is we want to also click on this. So if you automatically, if you never use the mixer brush tool by default, it would not have the sample or layers. So make sure you click on sample or layers at the top here. The reason why we want to sample all layers is so that it will take information from the solid color layer and actually blend it together, but blending it on the different layer, just in case you feel like actually this blending wasn't good. At least you can delete this layer and retry again. So make sure again, have sample all layers ticked and use the mixer brush tool, have that blended shading layer, and we're also going to be sampling colors using the eyedropper tool. So hit I on your keyboard now and click on that dark shade here that we've used in the solid shading layer, and go back to B to go into the mixer brush tool. And for the mixer brush tool, feel free to adjust these top settings if you like. I'm using a hard round pressure size brush, and I have lowered the hardness so the edges are slightly more softer than the original settings. And I think that works the best. But for you, feel free to kind of do a bit of trial and error to see what would suit your style. So what I'm doing here is simply now going up and down to blend those two colors together. And now I'm going to go to the next two shades, which is this kind of like a slightly darker tone color and a dark tone color. I'm going to hit the eyedropper key before I blend it. Click on that color, or maybe the slightly darker tone color instead, because it's slightly smaller. And go back to the mixer brush tool and blend those two colors together. Feel free to use a bigger brush or smaller brush depending on your needs. I do recommend going slightly bigger. The reason why it's easier to blend. If you use smaller one, maybe it might take too long, but it's really up to you as well. Again, I drop the color, go back to the mixer brush tool and blend those colors together. And do the same step again. And the last one there. Oops. This one, the last one here, might be good to use a smaller brush. And I might just repaint that color a little bit again using a standard brush tool. So I've accidentally got rid of that detail, and go back to the mixer brush tool and use a smaller brush and kind of blend that together. Cool, I think that looks good. Okay, so now we've done that part there. I've also purposely made sure to leave a bit of light here. The reason why is that color bounces from all around, so that's why we made, if you look in real life, you'll see that colors also bounce back. It's just slightly at the back as well. So I'm going to now sample that color here, use the mixer brush tool, increase my brush size a little bit, and just blend that through, and do the same here as well. Okay, there you have it. So that is the sphere, the blended shading layer. Next is a final layer. You don't necessarily have to do this, but you can if you like, which is basically selecting all of these three layers, so the blended shading, the solid shading, and the base color. So what you want to do is click on blended shading, hold down the shift key, so keep holding to the shift key, and click on to the base color. So as you can see now, three of these are selected. Hit Command J. Command J is a shortcut key for duplicate, and hit Command E. Command E or Control E is a shortcut key for merging. So now we have blended shading copy. We want to rename this to blur. So this layer is for blurring the sphere. So what we can do now is we can go up into filter, blur, and Gaussian blur, and we can simply now blur this. So blur it to where you like, and as you can see now that it creates like this smooth finish if you like that. Some people like to leave it at the blended shading to get a more kind of painted look, but if you want a more smoother look, that's what you can do to achieve that. So there you have it. Hopefully there was a useful tutorial on how you can use the brushes and also how you can use the masking to help you with your rendering. So hope to see some of your guys illustrations, and good luck with digital painting.